Hey, friends, we're here with another episode of the Power of Nine podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Eggert. Our guest today helps people understand and activate their natural talents to fulfill their God-given purpose. I am super excited to share with you my friend, Robb Breding. Robb, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Aaron. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we were just doing a little small talk. And I think this episode's going to drop like late June or something like that. But you just had your birthday. So you got to be feeling pretty good on cloud nine a little bit.
Yeah. 39 again. And I have some friends that count backwards. I just got stuck there and just stayed right there. So
I love it. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I wish I was 39 again, but I feel like I'm younger than 39. So I think, right. It's all about how you feel, not really how you look or anything like that. Right.
That's very true. That's very true.
Yeah. All right. So before I get started and we start sharing your journey with our listeners, I want to address your pronouns so I know how to address you during our conversation. Will you share those with me now?
Yeah. I he and him.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's what I prefer.
Okay.
So
great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. So let's get started. So I've known you for a little while and I love your story. You have a great story from being young. You went through some stuff and it all translated into who you are today. So you grew up in Minot, North Dakota. What is life like growing up as a child in Minot, North Dakota?
Well, Minot's actually a great town. Before I moved away, I never thought I would leave. I always thought it was just a great place to live and raise my kids and those kinds of things. So it's, probably typical outstate Minnesota I suppose there's a lot of Minnesotans that listen to this podcast. And, it's about 35,000 people. A unique fact about Minot is that there's an air base that adds about another 10 to 15,000, depending on how much we're spending on the defense budget. And they fly the big B-52 bombers in and out of there, which are big, like cargo planes, are huge planes. And so growing up, we used to hear sonic booms all the time from the jets flying in and out of the airbase. They don't do that anymore. That was kind of cool. And so just to really, my dad was a school teacher and mom stayed home with us, 5 kids, really pretty typical growing up in the 70s, graduated in 86, so kind of a really fun time. Actually, I love that decade. It's kind of a fun decade. So.
Did you being that close to a military base and having exposure to some of the cool, from a distance, the cool parts of the military stuff that you can see, did you have any inkling in your childhood of wanting to be in the military?
No, I didn't really, as a townie, as they called us or whatever, we had the fly boys out at the air base and then we were the townies or whatever, so there was a little bit of that. But I mean, I didn't have any animosity towards the Air Force, but it certainly didn't help to bolster my opinion of because there was kind of this, sense of, I don't know, just especially in school, you know what I mean? Like, it just seemed like that. It seemed like there was this, love for the military, but not because the base was there. We really understood what military life might be like. And that didn't sound good to me.
Yeah. So you explained to yourself to me as literally a juvenile delinquent. And so I think, I want to unpack that a little bit because I think we can go a lot of different directions. So your father dealt with some pretty significant mental health challenges when you were a kid. What age were you when he was working through all that?
I don't know the exact age, but it was like middle grade school, like maybe 3rd, 4th grade when it happened. Pretty significant, like normal to, mind, and it just broke all of a sudden. And my dad was a coach and a high school teacher in a town that wasn't huge. And so pretty public. So there was a lot of shame, I think, that went with that as a kid. And of course it was the 70s. So it's not like not that our technology is great today, even for mental health, but much better today than it was then in terms of medications and things. So yeah, it was just really, really hard. And I was a kid and So yeah, and that's really what kind of precipitated, I think, some of the juvenile delinquent behavior that I think you asked me what's a fun fact about me. Nobody ever could guess that I was a juvenile delinquent when I was a kid, but I was. So
I know. Well, and you've shared that with me in conversation in the past too. So in your definition of your life, what does that even mean? Juvenile delinquent could be like spray painting some buildings and then and stuff like that, or it could get a lot worse. What was some of the things that you were up to?
Well, it was, I was pretty young. So I was a junior high age, or even younger than junior high age when I started. And so, and something about me is I like to have fun, or I like to get in trouble, especially as a young kid, but I kind of always knew where the limit was, where it wasn't going to get too bad, where it was going to go off the rails completely. Mm-hmm. But I did, anything from grand theft auto to, smoked a lot of pot, did drugs, smoking cigarettes, running around vandalizing things, you know what I mean? Stupid things that kids do. Got arrested multiple times for that. And as a result of one of those arrests, I ended up in drug and alcohol treatment, and had a friend who actually became my brother-in-law later, who really, kind of stepped in and kind of gave me some perspective. And that's really where my life changed. So at a young age, I was 15 when that happened. So
it was just, I know that about you. Like, that's such an odd time, right? Like for someone to make that paradigm shift. And, we always talk about on this show, nature versus nurture, and then, a paradigm shifting event. Well, I think of all the people I've talked to, this is like episode 35. So on this it's the earliest paradigm shifting event of anybody that I've talked to, because typically this stuff happens a little later in their lives. You just happen to have a lot of life experience at a young age. So what was that moment like? And I know it was very faith-based. And so I know faith is huge in your life now, and it actually changed the trajectory for you. What does all that mean?
Well, just for me, I could friends from that era, I can tell you they're not in a good places. Lots of them. Okay. Mm-hmm. Jail, really, really tough stuff. I believe God just reached down and helped me, and so through my brother-in-law, his name is Patrick. He was dating my sister at the time, and he just took me out to lunch one day. I'm 15, just got arrested. He had to get me out of jail because my mom was out of town. And he took me to lunch. He took me like the fanciest restaurant in Minot, which isn't very fancy, by the way. But it's it's like where the wealthy people in Minot go and have lunch,
Yeah.
And we were pretty dirt poor, if you can imagine not having a dad. There was 5 kids. Yeah. And so that was just a huge deal there, just to go to lunch. And he sat me down and he said, Rob, he said, just wanted to make sure that you understood that, you can go any direction you want with your life. He kind of put it before me. And he said, you can go the way you're going. It's nobody's, probably going to be able to stop you. Or you could go this other direction, and he shared that with me. And I thought about it. He wanted an answer. Which way do I want to go?
Right there, so, right over your turkey.
He's a little bit older than me. Yeah, he's a little bit older than me. So he's in his 20s, very successful, by the way, real estate development, selling, at like 25. Very successful young man. And so I kind of like that, I thought that was pretty cool because I have this entrepreneur gene, I think, already back then. And so he gave me that ultimatum, so to speak. Not really an ultimatum. It was very soft, but I looked at him and I said, you know what? No, I want to be successful. And that's kind of how he framed it, success versus failure, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And so after lunch, he took me to KG Men's Store. Okay. I don't know if anybody, but that used to be a decent men's store. They had a tailor and they would sell suits, and he bought me I want to say it was like $250 worth of clothes in 1981. Okay. It's a lot of money. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm poor, and I dressed like Axl Rose. Okay. know what I mean?
Before Axl Rose was cool. Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, I mean, Axl Rose probably wasn't even around yet, you know, at that time,
Yeah.
but I mean, I dressed like a biker, you know, I had denim and, you know, leather and, you know, whatever. That was kind of how it was my deal.
Yeah.
And anyway, so he bought me these nice clothes and he said, now, Rob, you need to start looking the part. That's how you get started. You just, I don't know. So it wasn't, I didn't even hardly wear those clothes, but the act of love that he showed me by doing that was significant to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I still get choked up thinking about it, because as a young man, you know, you're kind of running and nobody really likes you too much. You know what I mean? Because you're kind of a rough person. And yeah. So I think it was the love that he showed me that really changed me.
Yeah. I mean, what a, like, I don't know. I'm lost for words. I got a little choked up there for a second. What a crazy shifting event, right? Like that just changed the whole trajectory of your life. I mean, you had to want to do it, but it's that act of love that he gave you that helped, you know, that reaching hand to help you along. So,
yeah, I mean, obviously the story's got a lot more to it. I won't get into all of it, but I'm just saying that is really that small thing. And I think that's the message, right? Is that, you know, when something's in front of us, just do it, you know, just encourage that person, just love on them. It can make a really big difference in their life.
Yeah. I mean, that's an amazing message. So then after you had that let's fast forward a little bit. So how did that change? What was your high school experience like then? So you're about 15 when that happened. What was life like in high school?
Yeah, well, so it's not like I just, you know, threw the pot pipe away or whatever, you know what I mean? Like it took a little time. I went to drug and alcohol treatment as a result of that arrest. Okay. They sent me there, spent 30 days in my pajamas, you know, it was really rough. And that was a life altering event by itself. But it really, what really changed me, and you mentioned my faith, is that and again, another thing this guy did is he sent me a Bible and wrote a little inscription that said, you know, I hope you enjoy what's found within. Your friend, Pat, you know, and then, so when I had grown up in the church, so it's not like I didn't know who Jesus was. Yeah. But I accepted Christ right after I had gotten out of treatment. And then it took probably 2 or 3 years to really, you know, by the time I was in my senior year of high school, I had gotten to a pretty good place. And then after I between my junior and senior year, I met my now wife of 35 years. Our anniversary is next week. And she really was instrumental as well, because she was kind of a good girl. And that gave me somebody to hang out with. And, you know, because my friends were a big magnet kind of back to this bad place. And I had to leave my high school. My principal, I'll never forget that conversation. I told him, I can't stay in your school, bud. You know, there's too many hoods here. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he was like upset about it, you know? And so I was like, no, I heard there's this other alternative school that I can go finish, and I can't stay here because I can't stay clean when I'm around these people. Not that I didn't love these people, because I did love them, but I just couldn't be around them on a regular basis. And so I'll never forget that, because that was not encouraging. And he's in hindsight, I don't want to be hard on him, but he was kind of proud of his school, and he didn't like that I was saying that, you know?
Right. So. Right. Yeah. And times were a little different then, right? Like, I think it was, you know, maybe everyone was kind of oblivious to how much of an impact that had on everybody. And, you know, there's not the social media stuff and all that. Right. All that, you know, that happens all the time. It's actually worse now. Okay. So what did you do after high school?
So I decided I was going to be a youth pastor. And so I set out to went to Bible college for 2 years, switched my degree to psychology, finished a degree in psychology, married my wife in my sophomore year. And then Sears got a hold of me in my senior year, and I got into a leadership track at Sears Roebuck and Company, which, by the way, for some of your listeners, used to be a really, really big, huge company, and a really great place to work. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was some of the things I learned through our conversations, is just how good they were at that leadership development and building good teams and building good employees. So you spent a good amount of time there, and that was really what helped guide you in the business world. what was your first job at Sears?
At Sears, my first job, I made signs in the sign shop. We used to have to one letter at a time for all of the racks in the store, if you can imagine that.
Oh my God.
Okay. Yeah. And then you'd put the ink on them. I'd have to set some of them I would make on a flatbed, and other ones I would make one letter at a time with this thing that I would press down. And then I'd put a little bit of flour on them and put them in this rack to dry. And then the sales managers would come get them and put them up in their department. That was my first job down in Cleveland, Tennessee, where I was going to school. That's where I started with Sears. So.
Really? Then,
yeah.
So you started there, you spent 10 years at Sears, you started making signs. What was your last job when you were at Sears?
Well, I had the electronics and appliance departments at Ridgedale. That was my last, had about 40 employees. And believe it or not, we were doing, I want to say it was like $5 million in sales or something like that I was responsible for. Yeah. Yeah. And then I was on special teams. I was in their leadership track. So they would give you experiences, and I would fly into Hoffman Estates several times a year for training. My favorite experience was I worked on their recruiting team. So I used to go to college campuses and interview students. And then we would bring the ones that actually were interested, we'd bring them into Hoffman Estates for a day, an intense day of assessment and interview. And so I got to be part of that team as well, which was a small team. There was only about, I want to say there was like 8 of us that did that. So yeah, that was really fun. And that's really, I think, all of this is kind of just bolstering my love. I love people to start with. And then now I'm starting to, I've got a psychology degree. I'm doing this stuff for Sears. They're using all this science, you know what I mean? Like, so I just developed this passion very early for people and organizational development. And, Sears had a big hand in that, and they really were very good at it when I was there. Yeah. So,
what was, I'm gonna go off track here a little bit. This popped into my head. In your opinion, what drove Sears into the ground? Like, why isn't Sears around anymore versus like some of these other chains that still survived?
I think I have an opinion about it. I think it was if you think of strategy, you have a target market. They targeted the middle market, but they targeted the middle market in a way, who wants to be mediocre? Who wants to be in the middle? Nobody. Okay. So, think of, what Target or Walmart is doing. What are they doing? They're showing you something at a discount, right? Like it's, good pricing, high value. Think of somebody like Macy's or Von Maur or some of these more, or Kohl's would be another good example where you want brands. Okay. It's not like you want to be in the middle. So I feel like their messaging that they did was wrong. And then of course, on the hardline side, margins were narrower, but they had great brands like Craftsman and Kenmore and some of those brands. I felt like they really just were trying so hard to be more of a soft lines or more of a full line department store that, and that just wasn't a core competency, that they really lost sight of the foundational things that they had on the hardline side. So yeah, that's my opinion. And I mean, it's just a tragedy what's happened to that company. Tragedy. Yeah. When Kmart bought Sears, I sold all my stock. I mean, that was the last straw.
Just from an outsider's perspective, when Kmart buys Sears, I think we got a problem, period.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and Kmart had a great CEO at the time. I mean, that was a smart thing, but it was, but I hated Kmart, you know what I mean? That was like the worst company in the world. So anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, let's take a quick break and hear about a few of our supporters. Regardless if you're a startup just figuring things out or a medium-sized organization with a full team, having a legal partner by your side is crucial. Seiler Law is fiercely loyal to their clients and are passionate about removing headaches and roadblocks that can pop up during the growth of your business. Whether you need general outside counsel, are planning a business transaction, or even need someone to help guide you through the estate planning process, the team at Seiler Law are the advocates for you. Visit seilerlaw.com to learn more. Seiler Law, where experience meets pragmatism. When you think of a typical CPA firm, you probably think of tax planning. Well, that just scratches the surface of what Boulay offers their clients. By providing smart, in-depth thinking from experts in accounting, audit, tax, and business consulting, they know what it takes to achieve financial success. Whether it's protecting your business, building your wealth, or securing your future, you can count on Boulay to go beyond addressing just financial matters and providing you with tailor-made, workable solutions. Learn about all they have to offer at boulaygroup.com. Boulay, helping you get there. If you're a business owner wanting to save money on your overall real estate costs, I want you to give Carlson Partners a call. The team will help minimize your risk exposure and help you leverage the market to see maximized benefits to your next lease, purchase, or disposition. They've advocated and negotiated for hundreds of companies and saved millions of dollars in real estate expenses. With over 75 years of experience representing business owners, let them help you save time and money on your next real estate negotiation. Visit carlsonpartnersllc.com to learn more. United Healthcare believes there's no limit to what care can do. UHC is continually focused on building a modern, high-performing health system via improved access, affordability, outcomes, and experiences. With a network of over 1.3 million care professionals and 6,500 hospitals and care facilities, United Healthcare is dedicated to connecting you to better health by offering quality benefits designed for affordability. Go to uhc.com for healthcare plans, resources, and more information. United Healthcare, helping people live healthier lives. Okay, back to the show.
All right, so I'm a product of the '90s, and you know I'm not a digital native, and so my first cell phone was, I think, in 1995, and you were still at Sears at that time, but then you know cell phones, as we got through into the early 2000s, were becoming more and more of a thing, and I'll tell you, I think I bought at least 2, maybe 3 cell phones from Shock City Cellular. And you started that business with, I think, was it with your brother?
Yeah, with my brother. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me that story about, okay, transitioning from Sears, where you had a really good thing going, to then just take the full entrepreneurial leap and just start a cell phone company.
Yeah. So it's a lot. It's a really good story, actually. My brother worked for a small box electronics retailer. So you're a product of the '90s, like you said, that you remember those stores. There's where you went and got your TV set or your car stereo or your, you know, that's where you would go. There wasn't Best Buy in Circuit City. I guess Circuit City's gone now too, but there wasn't these big box retailers where you would go and buy that equipment. So Don managed a chain of those stores for 2 owners out in LA. And in the 90s, they saw the writing on the wall. They saw Best Buy, they saw Circuit City out west. There was a company called Silo coming in and just basically going to put them out of business. Okay. And so they were older, so they got out, but they had started some cellular phone kiosks in malls out in LA in the early 90s. Matter of fact, Don said his first cell phone training was in '87. Okay. That's really early.
Wow.
So matter of fact, I don't even remember. I remember some of the district managers coming with those big phones to, at Sears, But anyway, so he'd been in the brown cell phones since they were burning NAM chips in them back in the day. And so anyway, they sold out, they closed their stores or sold their stores out to some key players, and Don was their key executive. And so they gave him the cell phone stores, but he had to buy the inventory. So he maxed out all his credit cards, bought the inventory, worked for 3 years. And then after the Christmas of '98, he finally made some money. And we're 11 years apart. I hardly know him, but he knew I was in retail. So he called me up and he said, "Rob, I just have to tell somebody I finally, had this breakthrough." And I'm like, holy shit, nobody's doing that in Minnesota, And so we decided to go ahead and start a store. I flew out to LA, saw what he was doing. It seemed rinky dink to me because I was at Sears, you know what I mean? This big company, and he had kiosks in the mall, And anyway, so that was in January when we talked. I flew out in April and we opened our first store in July. Yeah. And from there, over the course of like 10 years, we grew it to over 55 locations, primarily kiosk based. And then we switched to storefront model later in the process and did some franchising or dealer operations stores. So, yeah.
And I know that, I worked at Radio Shack in high school, and that was my first sales gig. And I did that for 2 years, 94, 95 into 96, I guess, too. And, when I used to sell bag phones, they would pay us like $200 per bag phone that we sold. And that was great, right? For a high school kid, especially, right? And especially in the mid 90s. So I got to imagine that, at the time that you were in there, and especially with what I would kind of have to consider a little bit of low overhead by having kiosks, that it was a pretty was it a good profitable business? And was it a good business? I have to believe with 55 locations.
Yeah, it was. I always tell people I should be a billionaire, but as most business owners, I made every mistake you could possibly make. You know what I mean? So my timing wasn't up. God, it wasn't in the cards for me. But we did have a lot of success. And here's what it was. It was a hard to get into business because it was complex. You didn't just buy a box and sell a box. Okay, you bought a box, you paid for the box, you'd give it away to the customer. Okay, then you got a commission from the carrier. Then if the customer didn't keep the service on for 6 months, you got charged back your commission and you were holding the bag for whatever that phone costs. Okay. So it's very complex business. So there was a kind of that created a difficulty for entry. Plus you had to have a relationship with the carrier like Verizon or T-Mobile or AT&T today. And so what we had going for us coming into Minnesota is Don already had a relationship with AirTouch at the time and had some creds. So we were able to parlay that into some contracts here with Aerial, which is now T-Mobile. There's been 2 iterations of that, and Verizon, Verizon really was the big one. You know, it was AirTouch at the time, and then we carried them all. We had Sprint, we had Nextel at the beginning, and so we had this complex business that Don had already kind of figured out how to do that complexity piece, and I was really good at the people and retail side, and so it was just a really good partnership. Our nemesis was finance, and we were both kind of just bootstrap entrepreneurs, you know. So for you entrepreneurs out there, there's 3 parts to business. Okay, sales, operations, and finance. And finance is just as important as all the other 2. Of course, we learned that through the School of Hard Knocks. I feel like I'm definitely an expert now, and I do have an MBA the hard way. Not I don't have a degree, but I definitely have it. So that would be, you know, a little bit of color around what it's like to run the business. Very complex, lots of locations, lots of layers, low margin, really. You mentioned that a little bit. We did have good margin in the product itself, but kiosks. So when we started, our rents might be, just to give you some perspective, and of course these rents are different today, but you know, $1,500 for 100 square feet in the middle of the mall when we first started. Well, once cell phones really started cooking by the middle of the 2000s, we were paying $10,000 a month. And we used to go into a new mall and tell them we sold handbags because we didn't want them to charge us that kind of rent. Okay. Because you'd think it would be based on the space, but it wasn't. It was based on the use, and cellular phone use was a high cost.
Wow.
So yeah, I had a couple of stores that was more than, you know, $120,000 a year for just rent for 100 to 150 square feet. None of our stores are bigger than 150 square feet. So in the kiosk stores. Wow. So that, and then we started to switch to storefronts after that.
I think that's where I got my couple phones, was from when you guys went to storefronts. So how about the people side of things? So how was, you know, that was kind of your baby, was to manage the people side of things. I'll call it even under the operations side. How was that, you know, finding the right people and, you know, not only just to work in a retail environment, but also at a kiosk? Like, it's just, to me, I got to feel like that's a little bit of a challenge.
Well, you know, you'd think it would be, but we really actually were known very early for our culture. And, you know, I don't know, you worked at Radio Shack. I guess you weren't there when we were in business, but we hired a lot of people from Radio Shack. I mean, our philosophy was that we were a fun, exciting place to work, and we paid the best for the best. So and we trained them really well too. So we had great sales training programs. Tiger process that we used. Matter of fact, I don't know if I have my Tiger up here, but we used to bring that to all the meetings. You know, I conducted sales trainings for all the new hires. They always got to meet the owner. Even when we had 250 employees, I still did those training classes with my team. And so we just had a really fun culture. When we first started, I used to bring wads of cash to the store manager meetings, okay, and give them their bonuses. Sweet. I mean, you know, it was just fun. Yeah. You know, we just would have fun with stuff. Instead of them getting a check in the mail, you know, they would get, you know, $500 in cash because they hit their goal last month, you know. Yeah. They just were jazzed. And they were all young, you know, 20 somethings. I wasn't even 30 years old when I started. So
sweet. Yeah. So you transitioned out of that business. You sold the business. How did you transition that? Who'd you sell it to? What did that all look like?
Well, so bittersweet ending for sure. So we had several kind of inflection points along the way in business. So 2001, when 9/11 hit, that was a really rough period for about a year. 2008 and 9 was really hard because we had just expanded into Wisconsin and Illinois, and opened we almost doubled the size of our company in the course of 3 years. And then that was up until 2008. Okay. We finished the expansion and then the recession hit. So as a result of that, we switched to this dealer model. Okay. So we sold off all the locations, went from 250 employees to 2. And then we moved into a master agent role where we had actual owners in all of our stores. And some of the owners, when we first started, we sold a group of stores to a couple different people. And that's how we got started doing that. So I tell you that because when we sold out, what ended up happening, one of my large dealers, I think they had 12 locations, was having trouble. They were struggling. We were trying to help them right size it, but they own the business. We're there, and it's not like a franchise. They don't have to follow every rule. It's a dealership. So we give them all these stuff to, framework, but if they don't follow. So anyway, they weren't doing well. And we ended up having to take over and left holding the bag for a lot of money. And so we ended up having to bankrupt the one company and selling the other. And that's how we got out. So I didn't get out. Like I always say, I should be a billionaire. So who we sold to was the guy that was at 50 stores at the same time I got to 50 stores out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Really?
And he went out east and got some venture capital money, the finance piece. And I think they have 7,000 stores now.
Really?
They're the largest Verizon dealer in the country. So
really?
Yeah, it's not his company, but he was the kind of the I think maybe the VC group that bought him and got him, or got bought into him and got him going, was bought by the bigger one. But Kevin still has a small piece of that. And so he ended up buying my stores. We were buds, we went all the conferences together and stuff. And that's all the money I got, Aaron, was for that one sale.
Well, what do you do, right? I mean, so that's business/life. So since then, now, you've transitioned out of that business. What year did you sell that business?
That was in 2014.
Okay. So, what was the next couple of years like after that, like that transitioning out of that, grinding every day. And then, it's kind of like almost, the slam on the brakes a little bit.
I mean, my inbox went from, full to zero in a minute.
Yeah.
The transaction was a lot of fun.
Cool.
We worked with some great attorneys. They were really good at it. You know what I mean? So they were pros on their side, but we had some really good help on our side. So another thing for you entrepreneurs out there, an attorney and an accountant are two things you better, and if you're doing a sale, get one that's got some chops, because there's a lot that can go on in that deal. A lot of nibbling.
Attorneys. And so I always think of the big three is attorneys, bankers, and CPAs, accountants. But then that accountant that has got an M&A, mergers and acquisitions background is so key. And I am with you 100%.
Yeah. And usually I think that in hindsight, and we've done a couple of deals, I had some smaller businesses as well. The attorney seems to be kind of the, once you've got that really good M&A, help, then they've got those other connections. My accountant wasn't, that I had it, before, wasn't the right one, but we knew what we were dealing with, kind of thing. So anyway, I don't want to get off track on that. That's good. The transition.
Yeah.
So but that is important. And it was fun. It was really fun to sell the business. You know what I mean? Kind of the back and forth and, waiting for it to close and all that stuff. And we did the transition meetings where, I had to tell all my people, here's your new boss, kind of thing, you know what I mean? And they were like, what? You're kidding me, and it actually all went really well, so it went really well. Then right after that, I found myself, with some runway, a little bit of runway, but I knew I needed to do some things. and didn't know what that was going to be. Thought I'd start another business maybe. My brother and I's relationship was strained at that time. You know, it was that, I can tell you, if you have a partner going through stuff like that, where we didn't sell, we were planning to sell, but when we really, you know, were forced into the trajectory we had. So that was stressful. And the other thing is we had a 50-50 partnership. So don't ever do that.
Oh, right.
That became a huge problem.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so my brother and I kind of went, or he was in LA, I was here. That was fine. We didn't hate each other, but we just kind of took a break. Took a couple little trips with my family. And then did a small little consulting gig with a friend for about 6 months. And then in the summer of 2015, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so I decided, it was really serious too, big tumor. She needed to have chemo, surgery, and radiation, and they told us it would take, you know, it's a year of hell. And so I decided to just kind of take a break and do some caretaking for her. I took a consulting thing that was easy, really, alongside of a nonprofit doing fundraising, but, you know, really not much there, you know what I mean? Just kind of did it on the side and then helped Pam through this time period. Well, that 1 year of hell turned into 2 years of hell. She ended up getting heart failure as a result of her chemo. And we lost her. She died actually in the emergency room in the fall of 2016 in front of my eyes. And thank God we were in the emergency room, because it was from asphyxia. Her heart wasn't working. And so her lungs just filled up with fluid. And so they intubated her immediately and got her heart pumping again. But the next 30 days, I mean, every day we went to the U of M hospital. Thank God we were in Minnesota. Every day for almost 30 days, the doctor looked at me like I could tell. He's like, your wife's going to die. You know what I mean? Like,
oh my God.
That's what it was like. And I just shut down. I just, you know, I brought my daughter back from Montana. She took care of, I have a 29-year-old and 11-year-old daughter. I think they were like 24 and 4 or something like that. I'm not going to get the math right, but Hayden was like 4. I think Haley might've been like 22. And so I brought her back. She took care of Haley. Pam's family came and took care of them at my house. And I literally lived at the hospital for that 30 days. Oh. Good news is Pam was, I mean, miraculously recovered from that and is doing very well today. But that shuffled my deck. That was quite an experience.
Yeah, I always say that to well, just people in general, is like, you know, you have some pretty life-altering events that create perspective. And I think you and I share a lot of, you know, we have a lot of same stories when it comes to breast cancer, and, you know, with my wife and your wife, and we've shared those stories and things like that. I think those are the types of things, those life events are the ones that you're going to learn more from about yourself than you are selling some business or growing some business or something like that. And it changes your perspective and your trajectory. So after going through all that and caregiving and literally dedicating your life to another human being, how did that change your perspective?
Well, it just really, I would never say this before that happened, but I was absolutely chasing money and power. Okay. You know what I mean? I wanted to be the big, you know what I mean? All the things that you think of when you think of the bad side of, you know, of being an entrepreneur. Okay. I used to deny that because I love people and, you know, I was people orientated, but in my heart, Aaron, I really believe, I mean, I have a book. Is it here? I have one book. I was going to own a skyscraper. I mean, that was like how big my dreams were, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So that changed. I decided, you know what's valuable? It really is people. And so I'm going to measure my worth based on how many people I influence, kind of like the Go Giver book that you shared with me when I started hanging out with C9.
Yeah.
Just like that, exactly like that. That was and I thought I had that value before, but I really didn't. And so encourage entrepreneurs that might listen to this, that, you know, you have to do some soul searching on that one.
Yeah.
Because,
So let's talk a little bit about the work that you're doing now. And so I opened the show with, you know, helping activate natural talents to fulfill God-given purpose. And so, you know, I think that explains it pretty well based on what I know about you. So what is some of the work that you're doing now for different types of organizations?
Well, I mean, I tried to stay in my lane. So I was in that small business category. I think at our peak, you know, we were around 25 million in sales. 250 employees. And what I've learned since I've been working to try to help entrepreneurs, like business owners, that's where I kind of started out originally, doing peer groups and things like that, like C9. And then that's iterated into working more individually with those folks on both behavioral and business coaching. And then that also translates into working with emerging executives within those organizations, helping them to build succession and plan for growth. Organizational complexity is something that really can bite you, especially if you have a really good business, okay, and it grows faster than you know how to handle that kind of organizational complexity. More and more people that you need to manage and lead it. You become further and further away from the culture. How do I maintain that culture? Those are the things that I've really been able to, I feel like, be impactful around. And like I said, usually it starts with, I help an entrepreneur or a business owner out personally. That's oftentimes how it might start, but I've also, I help with selection work. So maybe they're looking to promote or maybe bring somebody in from outside. I have some science and some assessment tools that I use to help with that. That might also be an entree for how people meet me. But I just love people. So, when I connect with them, I just say, if they need something, it's like when we used to greet at the kiosks, if they're, I offer them a glass of water, and if they're thirsty, they'll take a drink, So that's kind of my philosophy of how I do business development, but I really am looking for more people to bless. Yeah, that's really it.
Good. Tell me a little bit about, before we get into the 9 questions thing, tell me a little bit about your family. So you alluded, you have a couple daughters, your wife is doing great. Yeah. So your daughter, you have one daughter that lives out of state, right?
Yeah. So my oldest daughter, my firstborn, is out in Bend, Oregon. She's engaged to Lance, and they are going to be married on June 25th. And I have 2 grandsons with those 2, Hawken, who's 4, and Ryder, who's 1. And they're awesome. I don't get to see them enough, but we do, FaceTime with them all the time. Ryder just started walking, so that's kind of cool. Sweet. And he saying his first words, it's kind of fun. And then Hawk, of course, is 4 years old, and he's, running all over the place. And then we had kind of a little bit of a gap there, 18 years. And then Hayden came to our family, and Hayden's 11 and just finished 5th grade. And just great. She's just a great young lady. And there's a lot of story there around why it was 18 years between our kids. But we always say we just did it one at a time. God just knew that we could only handle one kid at a time. So,
right. You had a few things going on in between there. So it's all good. Yeah. I love it. We did want to raise them in groups, but it didn't work out that way. That's okay. Well, works in mysterious ways, right? So, I do want to say, just to put a bow on the business side of things too, is that, I've introduced you to a couple of people, and I know people that work with you. And the one thing that I do know about the work that you do is that you do have such a significant impact on these people's lives. And so the work that you are doing is very purposeful and is making an impact. And so, I think people that are looking for what you do and the experience that you bring, and I think you're great. I love to refer you over because it's a no-brainer. Then I can just walk away. I don't have to feel like I need to follow up or anything like that. You kill it every single time. So thank you very much.
That's nice of you to say, Aaron. Yeah.
The good, positive work that you do for our community.
Okay, here's a few more of our supporters. If you're anything like me, you know enough to be dangerous when it comes to finance, yet need some help when things are complicated. All-in-One Accounting provides the right financial expertise and leadership to align with your stage of growth. From outsourced accounting and bookkeeping to strategic financial planning, the team of accounting rock stars at All-in-One Accounting are passionate about positively impacting the lives of their clients. Check them out at allinoneaccounting.com. All-in-One Accounting, taking our clients from financial chaos to business clarity and beyond. Listen, people, everyone needs a bank. Not just any bank, a good community bank. From personal needs like checking and savings accounts to business services like financing and M&A support, the team at Flagship Bank is there to provide you with the assistance you need so you can spend less time thinking about your finances and more time enjoying what your money can do for you. To learn more, head over to flagshipbanks.com. That's flagshipbanks with an S.com. member FDIC, equal housing lender. Flagship Bank, investing in you.
If you're an entrepreneur or married to one, you likely have a shared vision on your future, but there's uncertainty on how to get there. That's where the team at eWealth Partners comes in. They see you as a dynamic duo, and as fiduciaries, they're committed to helping dynamic duos like you design a financial plan that aligns and empowers you. Navigating the entrepreneurial journey shouldn't add stress to your relationship. It should be fun and exciting. Visit ewealthpartners.com to learn how they help couples like you plan for their financial future today. eWealth Partners, holistic financial planning for entrepreneurial couples. Investment advisor services offered through AdvisorNet Wealth Management. eWealth Partners and AdvisorNet Wealth Management are not affiliated.
The topic of talent is hot in organizations of any size, and I would argue none more than small to mid-sized businesses. That's why it's crucial to have a partner to help you navigate all the HR idiosyncrasies so you can focus on working on your business and not in it. Insperity is a full-service HR partner with a high-touch, high-tech platform helping owners work through challenges like employee retention, company culture, and benefits, just to name a few. Do yourself a favor and explore all they have to offer at insperity.com. Insperity, HR that makes a difference. And back to the show.
All right, I'm going to transition. Hard transition to 9 questions. Let's get this party started.
Okay.
Can you confirm that you have no idea what I'm about to ask you?
Yes, I can confirm that. I'm a little scared.
Good. I know it. That's what I'm talking about. All right, let's do this thing. What was your first concert?
Def Leppard.
Def Leppard. Yeah. Was it?
Yeah.
Was it with? Did the drummer have one arm or two at that point?
No, he had both his arms. Yeah, for sure. It was an early concert. I was listening to Def Leppard before Def Leppard was popular. So
I love it.
Yeah, one of my favorite bands.
Nice. To this day, are they still you're one of your favorites?
Yeah, I still jam in the car with Def Leppard for sure. Yeah.
Great. I love it. Good.
Yeah, although I think there was one maybe before High and Dry, but that was kind of the one that I really liked. That was my breakthrough kind of album with them. So yeah.
Love it. Learn all sorts of things about you. I love this. What is the strangest thing that you've ever eaten?
Ooh, well, I think the uni sushi, whatever it's called. I've had that. I don't like that, but that's pretty odd. But I'll eat anything. I'm trying to think if I've eaten frog for sure. I don't know but yeah, the uni is just weird. It says it's kind of a bad flavor. And my brother loves it actually. Don, my old business partner.
Really?
But sea urchin, right? That's what it is.
Yep. My brother and I went to have sushi one time early in my sushi enjoying career. And I don't know, this is maybe 10 years ago, well, maybe longer than that, whatever. And he ordered that and I thought it tasted like dirt and the texture was terrible. So when you said that, I actually was like, ugh, that is disgusting. I'm with you.
I know. I tried it like twice, tried to develop. It's really salty. It's just terrible. Why would you eat that? Just doesn't make any sense to me, but anyway.
All right. Do me a favor. Close your eyes.
Okay.
All right. What is your favorite sound?
Music.
Can you be more specific?
I like the bass line, doom, 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 kind of thing, in the music, I guess.
Yeah. All right. I ask you to close your eyes because I think you need to shut down one of your senses to kind of think of what that actually means to you. So
Billie Jean, man, that's got the best bass line in any music I've ever heard. So
it does actually, yeah.
Michael Jackson's, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. What are 3 words that describe you?
Oh, I don't know. Fun. Excited. Driven.
There we go. Nice. All right. Are you a PC or an Apple user and why?
Apple. Well, I originally started using Apple because, we used to, first of all, when I sold wireless phones, we called the Apple phone the fruit phone because I wasn't an AT&T dealer and nobody could sell Apple for 5 years. Okay. That was terrible. So we made fun of the phone. We were BlackBerry. They were, that whole thing. So anyway, what ended up switching me on the PC side was I used all the Microsoft stuff, grew up with that. okay, in my business or whatever. But the transition really came when I wanted a PC when I opened it, that it turned on and it didn't take a half an hour to boot. This goes back a few years. And then of course now I have an Apple phone, Apple, iPad. I like the ecosystem. The very thing that Jobs predicted, back when he first started has happened. It's just amazing to me.
Yeah.
The vision that guy had.
So then do you use, what do you use for your email? And so then I'm just digressing here, but do you use Microsoft, or do you use Google?
I still use the Microsoft tools but I have to tell you, I have been contemplating moving off of that to try to I really am an early adapter. I like technology, but I wasn't the tweak like in our wireless business. My brother's he's the kind of tweak electronics guy. I just am really practical. I just want whatever's going to work best. And I'm not scared of anything, I'll just try it. You know what I mean? So yeah.
All right. What is the last gift that you gave someone and the last gift that you received from someone?
Well, let's see. My birthday was yesterday, so the receive part is easy. My wife bought me a golf club.
There we go. I like it. Good.
So I got to go to the simulator and try it out, and golf club and some golf balls. And the last gift I gave somebody, I try to give something away every day. I'm trying to think about an actual gift. I guess maybe have to go back to. I love to buy you lunch. You know what I mean? That to me is a gift. I love it when somebody buys me lunch, but I love to buy lunch for somebody. I know I gave my friend Carlin a gift the other day of just brought him some food, over and was doing some encouraging with him. So yeah.
Nice. Can't go wrong with food or liquor.
Yeah, I think food is really my go-to for what I'm going to give you. If you get a gift from me, it's probably going to be, and maybe liquor a little bit, but more often food.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to say, we kind of alluded to this, but I want to see what you're going to come up with. Describe your college experience in one sentence.
Not typical. I was married for most of it. So I felt like I was kind of an outsider. I didn't, no fraternities, no social, really anything at school. It was just really about learning.
Yeah.
That's kind of unique.
Go there, do your job and go home.
Yeah. And I had jobs, you know what I mean? Like I was working and so kind of, it's something that I kind of regret, not regret getting married, obviously, but just regret not having had that experience. I know some of my friends now, some of the relationships they developed in school are invaluable in terms of networking and doing things together. So,
yeah. Okay. What is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Well, probably going back to what Pat told me. You absolutely decide. Okay. If you've ever, what's the guy? I won't get his name right. He was in the concentration camp and they had literally taken everything from him.
Viktor Frankl.
Oh my good. Yeah. Frankl.
Yep.
So, and he determined in his mind that he was not going to, what they couldn't take from him was his choice. Mm-hmm. He could decide, and you have that. That's a huge piece of advice that Pat, he wasn't Viktor Frankl in me. But he just, it's so true. It's just so true. If you want to change something, just decide to do it. Yeah. It starts with our thinking.
Yeah. That's great advice. What gives you inspiration?
I'm very altruistic. So when I see a problem's really, when I see something that's broke, I want to fix it. If I see a person that's hurting, I want to help them feel better.
Yeah.
That's what inspires me.
All right. That was 9 questions. Can you believe how fast that goes?
Yeah, that was fast.
Yeah. Robb, you're great, man. Like, Juan, I met you on a whim at an event, having a beer, and you're like, I think you were like, tell me, what's your story? Yeah. and I was like, well, what's your story? And we're like, we should hang out sometime after we kind of figured out what each other did. And then we got to know each other, and I consider you a friend. You're a huge reason why Coalition 9 is successful, because of people like you, and specifically you, the impact that you have on the lives of the people that you lead. And so, I am thrilled to be able to have you tell your story on our podcast, because I think more people need to know who you are, what you do, and the impact that you have on lives in our community.
Well, thank you for having me, Aaron. And I will tell you, your smile at that bar, I mean, that was what drew me to. I'm sure people would say that to you. It's just you're exuding joy. So I knew I needed to meet you. So thank you for having me on the show. Thank you for inviting me into your community. I really do appreciate that.
You're fantastic. All right. So before we wrap up, and I close this thing out, how can people find you?
Best place, just go to my website, rev-advisors.com. You can contact me there. You can call me. I'm old fashioned. I had another person interview me and I gave my phone number. Actually, he put it on the screen and he's like, holy, nobody calls anybody anymore. Yeah, right. And I'm like, yeah, just give me a call. My phone number is right on my website. It's actually right. It's in my LinkedIn page. If once we're connected, you can call me. Yeah, I'd love to chat with you and get to know you.
All right. Well, I'll put all that stuff in the show notes. Make it easy for people to find you on their podcast platform of choice. And I'm going to wrap, man. You did such a good job. I love this. And it was so great to be able to tell your story.
It was fun, Aaron. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So on behalf of Robb Breding, this has been the Power of 9 podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Eggert, and I want to thank you for the privilege of your time.